name is Tom and I work as a delivery driver for a quaint diner called Maggie's Place. My shifts were typically uneventful until one chilling October night, just days before Halloween, when I encountered something I'll never forget. It was an unusually cold evening, the sky cloaked in thick, ominous clouds that obscured the moon. I was preparing to finish my shift when the phone rang with an order: a cheeseburger, fries, and a milkshake. Routine stuff, but the address was unfamiliar, leading me to a deserted street called Maple Avenue, a part of town I rarely visited. The drive to Maple Avenue felt longer than expected. The streets grew quieter and darker as I approached. Finally, I turned onto Maple Avenue and was immediately struck by the eerie silence. The street was deserted, not a single car was parked, and the houses looked dark and forsaken. I arrived at house number 103, a large, dilapidated mansion with peeling paint and broken windows. The overgrown yard and creaky gate added to the unsettling atmosphere. I walked up to the front door and knocked, the sound reverberating through the empty house. When no one answered, I knocked again, more forcefully this time. Just as I was about to leave, I heard a voice from above. "I'm coming," it said. I looked up to see a shadowy figure in the upper window. Although I couldn't make out the figure's face, I was relieved to know someone was home. I waited on the porch with the food, but no one appeared. I called out, "Hello, your food is here," but only silence responded. I checked my phone to confirm the address and tried calling the number on the order slip, but it went straight to voicemail. As my unease grew, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around to see an elderly woman standing on the sidewalk, her expression one of concern. "Are you looking for someone?" she asked. "Yes, I have a delivery for this house," I replied, pointing to 103, but no one is answering the door. The woman's eyes widened in horror. "No one lives there. That house has been abandoned for years. It's haunted." A chill ran down my spine. "Haunted? Are you sure?" She nodded gravely. "People say they hear voices and see shadows in the windows, but it's been empty since the family that owned it died in a fire." I was stunned. The house looked like it had been deserted for a long time. I turned back to the house, feeling a growing sense of dread, asking myself only one question, and that is, who had placed that order? Deciding to leave the food in the porch, I started walking back to my car. Suddenly the voice came again, louder this time. "I'm coming." I spun around, but the porch was empty and the house was silent. My heart racing, I jumped into my car and sped away, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. When I returned to the diner Maggie, the owner noticed my pale face and asked what happened. I recounted the entire unsettling experience. She listened intently, then sighed. Maple Avenue, huh? I've heard stories about that place. It's been abandoned for over a decade. Must have been a prank call." "A prank call? It didn't feel like one. It felt too real." I couldn't shake the eerie feeling that something supernatural had occurred. I finished my shift, but sleep eluded me that night as I replayed the voice, the shadow in the window, and the old woman's warning over and over. Curiosity eventually got the better of me. I researched the house at 103 Maple Avenue and found old newspaper articles about a fire that had destroyed the house 15 years ago. A family of 4 had perished in the blaze, and the house had remained vacant ever since. I still don't know who or what I encountered that night, but I've never returned to Maple Avenue. Each time I pass the part of town, a shiver runs down my spine, and whenever I hear someone say, "I'm coming," I can't help but remember that haunting night in the abandoned house with the shadowy figure in the window. On a chilly autumn evening, my friends and I decided to explore the old abandoned factory on the edge of town. Rumors had swirled around this place for years, stories of eerie creatures and ghostly sightings. Despite our apprehensions, our curiosity got the better of us. Tristan, Bobby, Sarah, and I were determined to uncover the truth behind these chilling tales. The factory loomed before us, a massive crumbling structure with shattered windows and rusted metal doors. The wind howled through the empty halls, sending shivers down my spine. We squeezed through a gap in the fence and stepped inside. our flashlights casting long menacing shadows on the walls. "Let's check out the elevator shaft," Tristan suggested with his usual bravado, or perhaps recklessness. We followed him down the dark corridors. When we reached the shaft, Tristan peered into the abyss below. "I think I see something," he whispered, his voice barely audible. I leaned in, straining my eyes for a moment. I thought I saw a faint human-like silhouette standing in the darkness, but it vanished almost instantly. I tried to brush it off. "Probably just a trick of the light," I said, hoping to reassure myself and others. Bobby, ever the skeptic, scoffed. "You guys are imagining things," saying there is no such thing as ghosts or monsters. We moved on, exploring various rooms and floors of the factory. The place was a labyrinth of old machinery, broken furniture, and piles of debris. The air was thick with dust, and each step echoed ominously through the vast emptiness. As we made our way to the upper floors, Bobby suddenly froze, saying, "Did you hear that?" His voice a whisper. We all listened, holding our breath. There it was, a faint rustling sound like something skittering quickly across the floor. "It's probably just rats," Sarah said. Though her voice trembled, we pressed on, but a palpable sense of unease hung over us. In one of the larger rooms, we stumbled upon a makeshift camp, old blankets, empty cans, and a small fire pit. "Looks like someone been living here," I said. "Maybe it's just a homeless person," Tristan suggested. We decided it was time to leave, feeling we had seen enough. As we retraced our steps, Bobby suddenly pointed to a shadowy figure darting across the hallway ahead. It moved so fast it was almost a blur. "Did you see that?" he asked, his face ashen. "There is someone here," he exclaimed. We quickened our pace, hearts pounding. Just then, Sarah let out a blood-curdling scream. We turned to see a dark figure standing at the end of the hall. Its eyes glowed eerily in the dim light. It was tall, thin, with long bony fingers. "Everybody run!" Tristan shouted, and we didn't need any further encouragement. We sprinted down the hall immediately, the figure closing in behind us. As we reached the stairs, I glanced back and saw it standing there, its eyes locked onto us, as if piercing right through our souls. We burst out of the factory, gasping for breath. We didn't stop running until we were safely back on the main road, far from that menacing building, panting and wide-eyed. We tried to make sense of what we had just encountered. "I could have been a person," I suggested weakly, though the figure's unnatural movement and glowing eyes had unsettled me deeply. Bobby nodded, still visibly shaken. "Maybe it didn't feel right," he admitted. Tristan, usually so confident, was uncharacteristically quiet. "I don't know what it was, but I don't want to go back there again." "Me neither," Sarah shivered. "That place is cursed." As we walked home, we tried to laugh off the experience, to make light of what we had seen. But deep down, we all know that something profoundly strange had happened that night. Even now, years later, when I hear strange noises in the dark or catch a shadow out of the corners of my eye, I remember those glowing eyes and the intense feeling of being watched. Some things are best left unexplored, and some mysteries are better left unsolved.